everyone. My name is Cise, and I hate to be the last one between you and lunch, so please bear with me. I'm a researcher at Simula in Oslo, Norway, and we work in heavy collaboration with Cise, a company who is involved in soccer in Scandinavia. And what we do is we work on a project called AI-based multimedia production, which is for preparing all of the content that goes into, streaming essentially, and how to do it in a way that is automated and AI-based. AI here is not just a sexy term, by the way. We really do use AI. Okay, so first of all, I want to start with why I do this or why we do this. We are researchers. I'm a bit different than many of the people here, both the speakers and the audience. We've heard a lot about pay-per-view. We have heard a lot about monetization, ads, and stuff like that. Well, here are 8 reasons why I do it. Because we love the game. Yeah, and we are, let's say, from the vantage point of the fans, because we ourselves are fans, so we focus more a bit on the user, with money as a, smaller concern. For me, that is not for my boss, so you get the gist. Also, this guy is my favorite on the bottom left. Okay, so because we love the game, though there is a problem, and this is also something that has been mentioned earlier, we have a lot of content, and not all of it is being consumed naturally, right? We love the game, so we produce a lot of content. There's the games, there's the streams, there's the VOD, there's the audio, there's some statistics, rankings, there's a lot of metadata, and there's a bunch of stuff. This is not consumable, yeah? It is not perceivable that a fan, even if you're a great fan like I am, can sit down and in the 24 hours of a day seriously consume all the available content from there in all of the soccer leagues that he or she is interested in. Now, this is why we want to provide highlights. Yeah, we want to provide summaries, and we want to produce meaningful content for the fans that they can more readily engage with. The way they are currently being done is there are centers like this. Actually, I think this is one from Sweden. It's some colleagues who were working for Allsvenskan, and they have tagging centers where very, very unfortunate guys have to sit all day long and watch games live. I know, like the really worst job, right? They sit down, they have to follow a bunch of games live, but they have to follow multiple games. Let's give them the credit. And then they have to tag stuff. Yeah, so they have to mark, let's say, in software when there's a goal happening, there's a card, there's a substitution, there's a kick, and they have to be, of course, accurate, but they also have to be very, very timely. Yeah, and they have to do it, in a short frame of time, which then maybe they can refine afterwards. Then they do a bunch of clipping, they select the thumbnails, they maybe write some short descriptions for the games, and they do all of this stuff manually. Although it might sound fun for us now, this is very tedious, and it's very, very time-consuming. Yeah? So this is the whole point of why we want to go automated. Yeah? And we don't want to just automate things in a rule-based manner, in a way that is like one size fits all, the silver bullet. What we want to do is we want to understand the content so that we automate things in a custom way or content-oriented way, so that it's more meaningful, with respect to the content. This is where the AI comes in. So one of the tasks we had was the automatic event detection and classification, this thing that those guys do by, literally like clicking and annotating an event. These are some of the events you might want to be, able to identify directly from the streams. And the idea is, if we have a VOD, if we have a live stream, if we have whatever, can I look at it in the form of frames and identify and, tell people or mark for a software where a card booking event is happening, yellow or red card, where a substitution is happening, or where a goal is happening. And this is what we have focused on using deep neural networks. As you might know, in computer vision, very deep neural networks like the VGGs, convolutional neural networks with many, many layers, have shown great promise in this field. When you're looking at things, the frames, as images, and then you try to understand what is going on in the frame or the image. And what we did was precisely that. We fed the stream or the VOD as frames to neural networks, which were trained already on what kind of scenes we wanted them to catch, and they were relatively successful. Then we said, is video the only modality that we can look at? And of course it isn't, and this is also very interesting for the streaming community. I think we also have audio. Yeah, and when we worked with audio, we saw that we could use the audio intensity in various ways, this log mass spectrogram basic representation being one of it, also as identifiers of what is going on in the event. Because as all of you might imagine, there's a different kind of audio, both from the commentator of the game, but also from the audience, the viewers, let's say in the field, when there's a substitution, as opposed to when there's a card, when there's a very fancy tackle, you know, when there's a goal. So we realized that different modalities actually provide us with very good information about how to detect events, not just the video, but also the audio. Then we had this, I'm sorry, I'm a researcher, so I have to show you some plots. So we had this relatively nice, I think, or successful models which were detecting events. What we are showing is the accuracy on the y-axis for 5 different approaches, for 3 different official events, goals, substitutions, and cards. And we were not so bad. So we were looking at different things, this residual networks. We were looking at video alone, video, audio together. And when we brought this back to our colleagues, what they told us was, we're not going to put it in our pipeline unless you got like 100% accuracy, because I cannot trust you or trust your software that, you know, an event will not go undetected, which is a very real problem. Yeah, so it is very likely that this process of detecting or annotating events will never be fully automated, but the idea is that the tedious manual effort can always be supplemented, you know, supported by some automated suggestions at least. So we do not see the future of this event annotation in complete automation, but we think that this would be a great help for those guys who are sitting there, unfortunately, all day long, every day, watching soccer games. They could be helped by this kind of algorithms. And where I think this could go in terms of streaming is also a very interesting discussion about what, for instance, players, let's say a Dash player, can do with the kind of information that we have if it is aware of which frames are containing important information, not in terms of being iframes, bframes, but it's about the content. Yeah? If we know when an event, important event is happening in a stream, then we might actually make our streaming decisions with regards to the ABR or the way you handle buffering or which quality you pick among existing, you know, in the bitrate ladder. Could be tremendously helpful, this contextual information. One other use case is, we have a demo, it's not going to play live, but please feel free to contact me afterwards, is to use the same approaches of computer vision, which is understanding frames and images, to detect players. These kind of things can also help live track players, or live track the ball, or, you know, live track anything that you're interested in on the pitch, as long as you have the neural network models that are trained on it. So it might also be very interesting for analytics purposes. The second task, which Magnus already mentioned, was the clipping. Now, why do we want clips? Is because, as has been also discussed today, people do not consume like the whole 90-minute game anymore. What they would rather have is something like a highlight. And this is precisely what some of the leagues do all over the world, but also in Scandinavia. Here in Norway, the Eliteserien, the top series for men, has, for instance, this highlights page where what they do is essentially they have a bunch of galleries where you can see the latest goals. You can see the latest booking, the red cards or yellow cards. You can see the latest shots and things like this. So there's a bunch of available clips like this, which are currently kind of manually clipped. Yeah, this is the same for the Swedish Allsvenskan, and they also have a highlights page where you can see stuff like this. They have these galleries where people can watch offline, like after the game, some of the important events. But the problem is, as I said, they are either manually clipped. Some guy who's doing the annotation also has to do a second round and then decide where to make a clip, or they do it in a automated banner, but it's very static, which means that they say, if I have an event annotation, I will always go back this much and go forward this much, and I'll always have a clip of, let's say, 35 seconds, which is super boring. So we started looking at how we could represent events in the form of frames, sequence of frames in the video. So we have events, or we have, let's say, frames where there is an event, and we have these other kinds of stuff. For instance, you could have the event of interest. You could have what we call a scene change, which is either when the camera angle changes, or you have an entirely different camera, different zoom. You could have these kind of scene change frames, yeah, scene boundaries, as we call them. Then you very frequently have this logo transition. This is an example from the Eliteserien, but you have it, I think, in almost every league, where before something happens, like a replay, you get this logo transition, right? There's this thing, like a scene, some transition on the screen, telling you that maybe you will be getting more info, or a replay, most likely. Yeah? So we conceptualize the events in a clip like this, and then we say, it would be really great to cut here, right? So that would be a really nice highlight for the event. Go a little bit back, and then go a little bit further, and find the right scene change points, and then just cut there. And then what we saw, as I explained before, was something of a weird clip, which was really cutting not at the correct frames, because we learned out that, for instance, Eliteserien was simply doing a static, automated, yet static way of clipping, where if they knew that there was an event annotation at a certain frame or second, they were just going -A, and then they were going +B. Yeah? So the clips were really starting and ending in a really weird way. So we said, this is where we can use AI, and we can use it in the form of, for instance, a scene boundary detector. So if we can detect these kind of scene changes, as I've shown you, camera changes, angle changes, zoom changes, then we could actually clip in a nicer way, which is not abrupt at all. Yeah? And another way we could use AI is to train logo detectors. These are just, essential object detectors or scene detectors, where you train it on a specific logo and say, yeah, I want to know exactly the point where a logo transition occurred. So this is what we propose. We have a way of clipping, at nice points, as we call them, and we have ways of trimming away some content, because we have an understanding of the sequence of frames in this manner, with these important marks. So I won't play these now, but we actually have a bunch of surveys out there if you would like to take them. We clipped clips, highlight clips in different ways to understand what people enjoy in terms of the correct clipping points. And the important part here is to understand that this is super subjective. Yeah, this is what we also figured out. It turns out some people don't want to see the replays and just the action. Or it turns out some people actually want longer videos, and they want, as many replays as possible. Or some people want the clip to be as short as possible, or they want the clip to start in a certain place to give context, instead of just starting at the referee holding up the card, for instance. Yeah, they want to see the action that caused it. There are many things like this. I hope these don't... This is Kent Andre swearing, but okay, let's not... We have a bunch of these. Please feel free to answer our survey questions, because, as I've mentioned, it turned out that this is a very subjective manner, that there's no way I can understand unless I ask people. Yeah, so we have to have the crowdsourcing approach for actually being able to do our research. So this was just some results where we were comparing the number of votes people gave to the question, which alternative do you prefer, with respect to different use cases, and the diagonally slashed ones are ours. It turned out we were not so bad, both of our alternatives, the short and the long one, but there's still a ways to go. Yeah, it seems like we are kind of doing better than what is out there, which is the static way of clipping, but because of the subjective nature, we are, there's so much to do, and what we did was we tried to understand better what people subjectively give more importance to. And these were things like, this is specifically for booking events, do they want to see the foul, for instance? Do they want to have a close-up? Do they want to see this thing? you know, with the referee pointing out the card? Do they prefer the replay or want it without? Do they want an animation where details on the screen come up, you know, in written fashion with the like card info, metadata? So it's a bit of a mess right now still, as you might see, because people value these differently. And this brings us again to the concept of how important it is to personalize. Now, another thing we realized when we did so much work with respect to clipping is, apparently, I spend months building these machine learning algorithms to do nice clips, and even if they're nice, people still don't watch them if there's no good thumbnail. Like, we make all these wonderful gallery pages, and the content is not consumed, and your efforts are wasted if you don't have a decent thumbnail. So I know this is a super subjective topic as well, but it was a very, very big issue, which I did not even imagine would be an issue. But then our collaborators came to us and said, okay, which one is the better thumbnail for the same video? I'm like, I don't know. You know? So we had to find a way to understand this, and like the best thing we could do was start by guessing what could be nice rules. So we said, let's have close-ups. I'm pretty sure people like close-ups. It turns out I was wrong. We said, let's have faces, and the bigger the face, the better. I was also wrong. Then we said, okay, it shouldn't be a logo. This I was right. It should not be some transition, you know, like a bad frame with a transition. It should not be blurry. It should not be dark. I was wrong with most of these, but, you know, that's how we started with the assumption. So what we said was, can I train, again, machine learning models to follow this rule set? Imagine if I had this decision tree, and then I'm saying, is there a logo? If there is, of course, I will drop the frame. Who wants to see a logo as a thumbnail, right? Then, is there a close-up? Because I thought the good rule was that there should be a close-up. I mean, it was kind of a good rule. But we were prioritizing frames with close-up shots, yeah, as opposed to the zoomed-out views. Then we said, is there a face? This is where I was most massively wrong. We said, it's better if there's a face. And, you know, it's better if it's bigger. So it's like if I'm seeing a player's face or something. So this is how we were prioritizing, so to speak, frames, and then having this enforcing of the supposed rules. We have a pipeline. I won't go into the details. We have some papers about this, but this actually is a pipeline that we can reuse. And we implemented and used this to select a bunch of alternative thumbnail candidates, which were selected using these rules, you know, enforcing these rules. And we were using, as machine learning algorithms, logo detection, close-up detection, and face detection. These were all algorithms that we had trained to, you know, automatically detect the relevant stuff. So we also have a GUI, some videos online if you want to see how it works. It's a very, very basic proof of concept GUI, but it's somewhere where you can select your priorities and select the machine learning models, alternative machine learning models, and then for a given video or a stream, it provides you with a suggested thumbnail candidate with, she says, very, very bad rules. Now, why am I saying very, very bad rules? Because we asked people. So what we did was, we ran this pipeline on a bunch of videos. When I say a bunch, I mean like a lot, actually. And then we said, okay, here's a video clip. Here are 2 alternative thumbnail candidates. Can you please tell me which one you prefer? And then we made these crowdsourced measurement campaigns. And then people selected the thumbnail candidates, and also, oops, sorry. People also gave us, okay, I cannot go back. Also, by the way, feel free to participate in our survey. And people also gave us feedback where, I think I lost that slide, but where they said that they would rather have blur if there is some action content, right? So instead of this, for instance, assume I'm the scoring player. I know it's not very likely. Assume a player standing like this and super high quality image, that they said they would prefer blur if, you know, I was going like this, celebrating after I scored a goal. Right? So there were some things that we did not assume in the rule set that we found out later on because we had this subjective feedback, and these are precisely the things that the industry and the academia need to consider. Yeah, and it turned out, for instance, that people don't care so much for faces anyway. Yeah? So we really have to tailor the solutions to the end user. Okay, one other thing was game summarization. Now, nowadays, as you know, we get after the game some like discussion programs where people have a summary video of the game as well as news articles which are summarizing the game, right? So we said, can we automate this as well? Can we create this content much faster and in a much efficient manner than it would normally be done if it's done manually. But then we realized that there's actually different ways of creating textual summaries, right? If you're writing something for Twitter, it's a whole different ballgame than if you're writing something for a newspaper article. Yeah, so it's not just the length either, but it's also about the neutrality of the content, how emotional it's supposed to be, as opposed to, you know, being something very formal or, you know, non-human-like. So we have this super complex pipeline. It's not super complex, but don't worry, I won't go into the details, where we tried to use natural language processing trained on a corpus of soccer texts, where we used the game video, commentary audio, any kind of metadata that we have, and we fed it to GPT, for instance, this super awesome chatbot that I think by now everybody has heard about. And then we fine-tuned the GPT, and then we said, give me a proper summary, like proper length or proper emotional effects and stuff like that. So this we have also published, but we're still working on all of these, obviously. So one important aspect that came out of this was, again, the importance of multimodality. Meaning, a student was asking me, for instance, Cise, I have a bunch of events in a game, and you asked me for a summary of only 200 words. Which ones am I going to prioritize? So he designed this dashboard where he could map different events to the audio intensity, both in the commentary of the person commentating the game and also of the viewers on the pitch. And then he said, using the audio intensity, I can actually prioritize events because I would just have the more exciting ones included in my textual summary, which was a very nice approach, I thought, and super easy actually to do. So this again points out to the importance of different modalities and not just considering video as video, but, you know, considering different aspects. The last thing is audience engagement, which we have done very little about until now, but this is where we want to go. As has been mentioned before, we think the world, like the sports world, and especially for soccer, for fans, it's going towards a more personalized content production and consumption sphere. So that's what we think where we are going. These are examples of, for instance, the EPL poll, Player of the Month poll, and I think that was the UEFA Champions League goal of the round app. These kind of things are things that we're starting to work on in terms of personalization. Yeah, and we want to use recommender systems, for instance, which actually know your preferences. Yeah, know your favorite team, or know that I prefer Messi over Ronaldo, for instance, that they provide me with more relevant content. Yeah, and these are side things that have nothing to do with the actual, I mean, they have a lot, but they're not necessarily the original stream or the game, right? But these are the kind of content, the side content that fans, and especially young fans, intend to interact more with. So this is where we think both the industry and academia should go, and this is where we are focusing our research on. So we have focused on, let's say, I think 5 tasks or cases right now, which were mainly for helping our collaborators with their very, very manual tasks. But the idea is that there is a lot that academia and the streaming community can work on together, so that the kind of information that we're able to derive and the kind of metadata that we're able to derive from the content helps also the streaming community in terms of designing the best ways to stream it, as well as the fans in terms of, you know, getting the best content, or let's say the most enjoyable, useful, and to-the-point content that they're looking for. So with this, I would like to thank you, and if you have any questions, please feel free to find me during lunch or any of the breaks.